All right, good evening, and thank you for joining us. I've taken a little bit of a break after the elections, but I'm back now. We'll have regular lives every day at 7 o'clock, and today we're discussing Rahul Gandhi's new role as leader of opposition. His personal journey from where he started off as a politician to where he is today, what it's taken him to get this far, and also what this means in Parliament for now to have an opposition that's as strong as it is, to have a formal leader of opposition, and what Parliament is likely to look at. We'll also discuss the Om Birla now being appointed, or elected in this case, Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And to help us understand all of these things, I'm so pleased to introduce Ms. Arati Jerath. She's a veteran journalist and a political commentator. We've been trying to speak to her for a while, so I'm thrilled that we got that chance today. Ms. Jerath, good
Thank
evening,
you,
and
Faye.
thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
My
you.
first question is about Parliament in general. We have a stronger opposition in sheer numbers, also a more determined opposition that has tasted some blood in this election. So they seem to be on the tail of the government constantly in comparison to previous terms. With a formal leader of opposition this time, for the first time in 10 years, what will that difference be in your mind in the functioning of Parliament?
Well, firstly, leader of opposition is a formalized post, which is there in the rules of Parliament, and it automatically elevates Rahul Gandhi to the status of a cabinet minister, and makes him automatically a member of important committees in Parliament and important committees outside of Parliament. For instance, committees to appoint the chief vigilance commissioner, the chief of the CBI, the election commissioner, the chief election commissioner, and so on. So, I mean, although in the last term there was no formal leader of opposition, but the government allowed Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary as leader of the
Yes.
largest opposition party to be part of these committees. Obviously, there's a big difference when it's Rahul Gandhi and he is a formal leader of opposition. I don't think Modi can brush him aside. The government cannot brush him aside. And when he comes out and speaks, he will be taken far more seriously than Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. So, I mean, to that extent, there are, new constraints, or let's say changed circumstances, within which the government has to function. The way this parliament session has started off does not
Hmm.
really augur well for the rest of the parliament session. I mean, the next 5 years actually, because it started off on a fractious note, where they fought over the appointment of the pro tem speaker, they fought over the appointment of the speaker, they fought over the, appointment of the deputy speaker, and there was that brief moment of bonhomie when the opposition decided not to press for a vote on the election of the speaker, and Rahul Gandhi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi shook hands, and they both escorted as per convention, they escorted the speaker to his chair. But that bonhomie was immediately broken when the
Yes.
speaker moved a resolution, condemning emergency. Now, it's very unusual for the speaker to move a resolution. If the resolution had been moved by the government, it would have been quite different. But for the speaker to move a resolution, it's like the speaker is reflecting the sentiment of the entire house.
Hmm.
He speaks for the house. So if he is moving a resolution, it has to be a resolution which has a consensus across the board. And, this one didn't, because we saw that the Congress MPs protested. The rest of the opposition didn't, but the Congress MPs protested. So, I mean, that's not a very nice way to start a new parliament, 18th Lok Sabha, an election result which is not quite being what you expected it to be, and, which requires much more, sort of consensus, more accommodation, much more communication, and I don't see any of that.
Mr. I want to discuss Rahul Gandhi particularly as an individual. And but he started off, and really, assume there were a couple of turning points of, points of registration of his political career when he ripped up the bill that had been passed by the Manmohan Singh government, or had been tabled by the Manmohan Singh government. Then the interview that he did with Arnab Goswami, that sort of was a bullet to his career that took a very long time for him to recover from. And there was, on social media via the BJP, a very concerted effort to sort of paint him as a pappu who doesn't understand anything. The Prime Minister himself has sort of made insinuations that he's a Shahzada, he's sort of born with a silver spoon, he doesn't really know what's going on, he's not connected to the ground. Do you believe after this, now as a five-time MP, Rahul Gandhi has made that journey now as leader of opposition, effectively being the shadow prime minister in the opposition benches and the leader of that entire, strength of opposition at 230?
Well, two things really stand out in Rahul Gandhi's journey. One, I think, is his persistence, his determination, against all odds, the kind of insults, humiliation, mockery that he has taken, where, an entire array of cabinet ministers, starting, of course, with the prime minister, but the whole array of cabinet ministers mocking him at every step. But somehow Rahul Gandhi has not let that get him down, and he has persisted. It's like an Agni Pariksha for him. He's really gone through a test of fire. And I think that that is what really makes a leader. If you look at, sort of our past leaders, they went through jail terms, they struggled on the ground, they, led movements, they participated in protest marches. Rahul Gandhi, didn't do all that in the beginning. He sort of sailed in with a silver spoon or a golden spoon in his mouth, and he was there. He could, do this terrible thing of, insulting his own prime minister by tearing up a ordinance that the, government was planning to move. So, after that, he's had to really earn his spurs. And I think over 10 years, what he has proved is that he is determined to stick it out. They called him a reluctant politician. They mocked him as a reluctant politician who used to keep disappearing. But somehow he has stuck it out over the years. And I think that really the turning point for him came. So you remember 5 years ago when they lost the elections for the second time. And he did that, he threw that tantrum at the Congress Working Committee meeting and just walked out and said that I no longer want to be Congress president. And he didn't appoint anybody in his place. And for
For a while.
months, the Congress was, just adrift because they didn't know what to do. And, I mean, look at that man 5 years ago and look at him today. And I think the turning point really came with the Bharat Jodo Yatra when he walked thousands and thousands of kilometers, interacted with common folk. I mean, I think it built a profile for himself. He built a profile for himself. It also gave him tremendous, confidence, that he has the skill to interact with people. And then, of course, nothing succeeds like an electoral success because from 52 seats, he's reached 99 and actually 100 because one MP in
Yeah.
Maharashtra has promised support to him. So it's 100 seats. And, today Rahul Gandhi is bursting with confidence. You can see it. Whole body language has changed. He looks much more determined. And, Faye, I mean, this is, maybe like a bit of a gossipy thing to say, but just to show the difference, this is the first time in many years that I have seen Rahul Gandhi spend his birthday in India, and having a celebration at the party office with his party
Yes.
leaders, sharing cake with them, and he's never done this. So, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think he's beginning to understand that a politician has a public life and there's very little space for, privacy when you're a public personality and a
Mm.
political leader. So maybe this is something that he's coming to terms with. And yeah, I mean, he's looking much more confident. He's talking much more confidently. And I think he's very determined to make life difficult for the government because I think the attempt of the entire opposition is going to be to delegitimize this government, to say that it doesn't really have the majority to rule. They're pretending that it's Modi 3.0, and if you listen to the president's address today, she talked about it being a majority government, but it's actually a coalition government. It's not
Yes,
a
it's
single
not a
party
majority.
majority government. Yeah.
If we retain focus on the opposition, also for Rahul Gandhi, the interesting challenge here is to take all of his allies from the India bloc along, even as leader of opposition. And he seems to have done a fair job of that during the election. But there were some moments when Mamta Banerjee had decided, announced that she would contest separately. There was around the same time that Nitish Kumar broke away from the India bloc. There seemed to be some nervousness. That nervousness seems to have been set aside at this point. What do you see as the challenges for Rahul Gandhi in this new role? Because he's never actually taken on this kind of responsibility before. This is his first time to have taken on a formal responsibility inside of Parliament.
Absolutely. And the job of a leader of opposition is not an easy one because there are several challenges. One, of course, is strategizing, in Parliament, how you are going to corner the government, how you are going to, conduct a debate, what are the issues that you're going to raise, and what are the rules that you're going to use to put the government on the map. So these are all things that Rahul is not really familiar with, although he's been a 5-term MP, but he's not really handled
Yeah.
all this. So he's going to need help from more experienced parliamentarians, and I hope he builds a good team around him that can help him with. And of course, the other big challenge is to manage this coalition. Just like Narendra Modi has to manage his coalition, Rahul Gandhi has to manage his coalition. And the good thing is that uh, if you look at his main partner, Akhilesh Yadav, Tejasvi Yadav, they're all in his age group. They're
Yeah.
all young in their 50s. They have a personal equation. And, and the fact that they fought elections together, they addressed joint rallies together, they got that enthusiastic response from the public, I think has help them to bond well. Mamta Banerjee is a bit of a problem because Mamta
Mm.
Banerjee, sees herself as a generation older than Rahul Gandhi. And she's, had a lot of problems with Rahul Gandhi in the past. She's never really accepted him as a leader. But I think Rahul Gandhi has been trying to build, bridges with her nephew, who is her political head, with Abhishek Banerjee.
Mm.
I mean, this is all, look, it's a work in progress. And, we'll have to see how he manages it. But yes, these are challenges for him because, you know, Rahul Gandhi, like Narendra Modi, you know, he's used to getting his own way. He is the heir apparent in the
Yeah.
Congress, the, Gandhi family dynasty. Nobody questions Rahul Gandhi in the Congress. But now, for the first time, he is going to have to, step off that pedestal, get down to work on the ground, and deal with people who see him as an equal and who do not put him on a pedestal. So it's a challenge for him, but let's see. I mean, he's withstood the last 10 years that ugly pariksha that he's been through, and let's see how
I
he comes out of this.
I do want to ask you this. If we consider the sort of media coverage Rahul Gandhi has received for his performance inside of Parliament, there was that one moment when he demanded conversation about Manipur. He made a speech. Everybody wanted to hear what he said. Again, it got marred a little bit by what the government called unparliamentary behavior. There have been points where he's been pulled up for winking, he's been pulled up for hugging the prime minister, he's been pulled up for unparliamentary behavior. Do you think that that is the media being extra harsh and vigilant about him, particularly, or is it just a personality that he's growing in and out of?
Well, I mean, the media was harsh, but I do believe that it's really does not behove the decorum in Parliament for him to just sort of cross the floor and hug the Parliament, hug the Prime Minister. or for that, that weekend nod that they did. I mean, that was really, not becoming. And now that he occupies a
There was a
position as
flying kiss
leader,
at one point as well.
yes,
Yes.
there was a flying kiss at one point also. I mean, it's like, these are like schoolboy jokes. And, now that he's leader of opposition, I think Rahul Gandhi has to take himself and his role and his behavior a little more seriously. And I was actually quite impressed to see that on the day the speaker was elected, he had discarded his t-shirt and pants for, a kurta pajama. And, he didn't walk with his hand in his pocket, but he walked, sort of properly.
Yeah.
So let's hope that, because I think, these little things, it's sort of the way you dress, your body language, the way you behave. I think these things do make a difference. And I mean, I think when because of the way he has behaved in the past, when the BJP called him Pappu, it kind of, I know that the media amplified it, and therefore it seemed to be the truth. But he didn't help it. He didn't help his cause with the way he behaved. So let's hope that he will show a little more seriousness of purpose, and in that in and acquire that gravitas that is necessary to be the leader of opposition. Because at the end of the day, as we were discussing earlier, in the Westminster system, leader of opposition is the shadow prime minister,
Yeah.
right? So, you're looking at the possibility that one day Rahul Gandhi may be prime minister of the country. And therefore, that needs a certain gravitas, it needs a certain
Mm.
seriousness. You really cannot walk. You can't do this wink and nod and flying
Yeah.
kisses and, stuff like that inside Parliament. So let's see. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the 18th Lok Sabha, because it's, I think, going to be quite interesting to see the way Rahul Gandhi evolves and to see the way Prime Minister Modi evolves in this,
Yes.
in the changed circumstances where he has to run a coalition, he has to deal with coalition partners, and he has to deal with the resurgent opposition. So,
The
it's
BJP, Mr. Jarat, uh, including the Prime Minister, if we're being very honest, is now accustomed to sort of ramroding through Parliament and having their own way. They've passed some very serious bills with almost no discussion. The joint parliamentary committees have barely functioned. We've seen very few, and as journalists, we wait for vigilance reports or for reports to be tabled in Parliament, but there's very little literature coming out of Parliament in the last two terms as well. Do you expect that to change? Will this government right now in the third term be under pressure now to perhaps have more joint parliamentary committee meetings, more reports that are actually presented, more discussion?
Well, I hope so. This committee system that was established during Narasimha Rao's time, where they set up standing committees for all the various ministries, and they would meet regularly, call officials from the ministries, to get reports
Mm.
and then prepare a report which would be tabled in Parliament. That committee system virtually broke down, particularly in the second term of the Narendra Modi government, because he had such a brute majority that. There were actually very few opposition members on those committees. So, the BJP members used to do exactly what they wanted to do, and therefore, the committees barely
It's
functioned.
meaningless. Mm.
Today, of course, you're going to have many more opposition members on these committees. And therefore, I mean, there will be pressure to make these committees functional. There will be pressure to demand discussions. Even the budget will come under much more scrutiny than it has in the past. Earlier, it was just, I mean, budgets are supposed to go to the standing committee for scrutiny, and then it's supposed to come back and be passed in parliament. But they were never scrutinized because the BJP had that brute majority. So, I mean, there will, of course, be this pressure. Now, the question is, how does the government handle this pressure? Because, as you said, they are used to having their own way. They're used to running things the way they want to. And, how much are they going to concede? How much space will they concede? How much are they ready to accommodate? So far, the signs are not very good. I
Mm.
mean, today, in fact, the way the speaker, sort of ticked off Shashi Tharoor, the way the speaker ticked off Dipendra Huda, it was kind of very
For saying
unpleasant.
Samvidhan. Yeah,
For
they
saying
were not.
Samvidhan.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that. And, there was a guy who said Jai Hindu Rashtra, but he didn't say anything, you know. And Shashi Tharoor only said Jai Samvidhan. And then when Dipendra Hooda got up to defend him, he said, Betho, chalo, betho,
Mm.
sit down. Don't tell me how to run the house. So, I mean, these are not very encouraging signs of cooperation, of accommodation, of consensus. So I don't want to prejudge because these are
Yeah.
early days yet. But I mean, I hope that things will improve as time goes on.
The leader of opposition, the position that Rahul Gandhi holds right now, will be part of committees which appoint director of CBI, Central Vigilance Commissioner, Chief Information Officer, the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission, the Lokpal. How much will Rahul Gandhi be able to influence these decisions as a member of that committee? Will he have enough room and enough say here?
Not really, because there are. I think the composition of each committee is different.
It's different, yeah.
Some committees have the prime minister, the chief justice, and the leader of opposition. Some committees have the prime minister, a minister of the government, and the leader of opposition. For instance, like for the chief election commissioner, they've knocked the chief justice out. And now it is a committee of three with two members from the
It was two
government
one.
and one Rahul Gandhi as the leader of opposition. So it's a 2-1 majority. I mean, he really won't have a say. But yes, for the CBI chief, as far as I know, that is the chief justice, the leader of opposition, and the prime minister. So I mean, there's more room for the leader of opposition to speak up. But what I do expect Rahul Gandhi to do is, say, for instance, like for the chief election commissioner, where he really will be outnumbered, but he will come out and speak. He will tweet, he will address a press conference. This is the new Rahul Gandhi that we're seeing. He's addressing the press quite frequently now.
Yes.
If not on a daily basis, but frequently enough to get his point across. So I expect him to come out and speak. And in speaking, he can certainly put the government on the map. Even if he can't influence the decision, he can certainly put the government on the map. And, all these things it's, as I said, the attempt of the opposition will be to chip away at the legitimacy of the government and to, kind of reinforce this, their allegation that it is dictatorial, it is authoritarian, that it does not believe in democracy. So, to that extent, I think Rahul Gandhi, as with that title behind him, with that position behind him, he will be taken more seriously. And as you said, even the media is giving him more space today than it has all this time.
Yes.
So, we
And
expect to hear more from Rahul Gandhi.
you're so right, because I was just reading before we started our conversation, and the tone with which the media is discussing Rahul Gandhi has changed um, considerably since
Yes.
this, I would like to believe that the Indian media still believes in the propriety of the fact that now this person is leader of opposition and hence has to be treated with a certain level of respect. But I mean, we both know where the media is right now, so maybe that's giving it too much credit. But there is a change in tone. I do want to ask you, though, we were having this chat before we went live. Do you believe that the BJP is also considerably weakened in its current form? And we are constantly in election mode, so there are several state elections coming up as well. Would you explain to me why you believe that?
Yes, and I think that this really is the challenge before Narendra Modi, much more than whatever pressure may come from his coalition partners, because there are three elections coming up in October. One is the crucial state of Maharashtra, which is the second biggest state in India, also one of the richest states and home to India's financial capital. The second is Haryana, which is right on the borders of Delhi. And the third is Jharkhand, which is a tribal kind of state. And the BJP is looking very fragile in all these three states. In Maharashtra, you know what happened. And, the whole political scenario there is in such a state of flux. We don't know who's going to go where. People are knocking on doors, trying to enter. We're hearing reports of Shinde Sena MLAs wanting to go back to, Uddhav Thackeray. We're hearing reports of Pawar's NCP MLAs wanting to go back to Sharad Pawar. And, Sharad Pawar at the end of the day is the most dominant figure in Maharashtra politics
Maharashtra
today.
politics.
And Devendra Fadnavis is looking very weak. And the fact that he offered to resign, you know, it sent out a very bad signal. So the BJP is looking fragile there. In Haryana, the BJP lost 5 of the 10 seats. And even today, there is a lot of discord within the Haryana BJP. This whole kind of caste divide in Haryana between the Jats and the non-Jats, which the BJP has managed to create. And although they've taken in some Jat leaders from the Congress, but the BJP has come across as very anti-Jat. So, if in these three states the BJP loses these elections, it's going to be a big blow to the BJP's image. Apart from weakening them in Rajya Sabha, because, they will then, when the elections come up, they will have less representatives in the Rajya Sabha. They will look politically weaker also. And then, of course, next year come two elections. One is Delhi, where they're trying their best to, kind of wipe out Arvind Kejriwal. And I think everybody is seeing through what they're doing, the way they arrested Arvind Kejriwal. When he was on the verge of getting bail, suddenly the CBI moved in and slapped a case against him. So now he's had to withdraw his bail plea from the Supreme Court because he has to rework it to, include the CBI
Include the
charges.
CBS charges.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's pretty clear. I mean, I went around the streets of Delhi, during the Lok Sabha, and although the mood was very clearly in favor of Modi for the Lok Sabha, because they said Upar Modi, Niche Kejriwal. There was a lot of sympathy for Kejriwal. And, this is something that the BJP is going to have to play very, very cautiously when they go for that. Because, again, another kind of wipeout in Delhi is going to harm them, damaging them. And then, of course, comes Bihar at the end of the year, where they have an aging Nitish Kumar leading the JDU. And and a young Tejasvi Yadav who's just, kind of raring to go,
Yes.
with Rahul Gandhi, as his partner. So, these are very critical times for the BJP with these 5 state assembly elections coming up because, you know, although Modi may be ruling at the center, but if you lose the states, then, you're losing your frontiers. It then becomes like you're the Delhi Sultanate, you're in power
Mm.
in Delhi, but you don't have the frontiers under you. And then it becomes very difficult to actually, run a government, deliver on his governance promises. Today the president listed out a whole range of, wonderful visions for, India in the next few years. But if the state governments are not with you, how are you going to implement these policies? How are you going to implement this
You
vision?
know, as a citizen, speaking more as a citizen than a journalist at this point, my deepest concern is this: we have some glaring problems in our country right now. A heat wave that's killing people. We have climate change issues. We're chopping trees and forests still quite liberally. Air pollution that's killing people. We've got this NEET exam sort of issue where we have the largest number of students who die by suicide every year, which I believe is a shocking number, but we don't seem to be reacting to it like we should. There's severe unemployment. There's there's inflation that's crumbling the poor. If this is the way things are structured right now, how optimistic can we be of the government actually being able to, and any government, state, center, city, actually being able to tackle the issues that affect our lives on a daily basis? Are we just going to see a lot of this ED, CBI, arrested, not arrested? ally, not an ally, switching parties. Is this largely what the next 5 years are going to look like?
So, apart from this ED, CBI, and trying to wipe out the opposition and break opposition parties, because it's quite possible that as if Narendra Modi does get weaker, losing state elections, he will resort to trying to build his majority in parliament by breaking opposition parties. Ultimately, even Narasimha Rao did that. When he ran that minority government in
Mm.
1991, by 1993, 94, he broke the JMM. He, got the RLD to cross over, and he built his majority. Which, mind you, damaged him considerably politically. And it took a long time for I think history to forgive him. To remember him as an economic reformer rather than the a corrupt prime minister who broke parties to get himself a
Yeah.
majority. So it apart from that, I was going through the president's speech today, and the outline that was drawn up for the vision of India. You know, there was very little mention of education. There was very little mention of skilling our, this humongous young population we have, which is largely illiterate. There was very little, mention of, building health infrastructure so that you have a population that is not malnourished, from infancy onwards.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk of semiconductors and, all these high tech industries and, which require, Faye, a huge degree of education and literacy to even be employed there. We have such a huge illiterate population. And when I say illiterate, maybe they can write A, B, and C and, write their names, but they're not really educated, and they're certainly not skilled to be employed in such high tech sectors. So, I mean, we seem to be, flying in some other, universe or some other, stratosphere somewhere, which is not rooted to the ground. And then, there was also this mention about smart cities and, cities without pollution and, so on, but no plan on how are you going to tackle this terrible air pollution year after year after year we face it in Delhi? And till today, nobody has come up with an action plan to do it. And it's just, the Delhi
Yeah.
government blames Punjab, Punjab blames Haryana, Haryana blames Delhi, and, it just kind of, falls by the wayside. And we don't do anything. So, I when I was reading that speech today, I was really thinking that what was in that speech for the common man. I didn't see anything in that speech for the common man to kind of relate to, that yes, this government is going to look after my real needs. There was some talk about the free grain and so on, but at the end of the day those are freebies. And I think during the election campaign we heard voices from people saying that free grain and all are welcome, but we need
We
more
want
than free
jobs.
grain. We want
Yeah.
jobs, we want education,
Jobs.
we want skills, we need to grow, we need to fulfill our aspirations. And I didn't find anything in the
You know,
president's speech.
Ms. Jiran, I find this, and again, I believe this is a failure on the part of the media. There's a lack of accountability. This is the government who, pre-COVID, and when we were raising the issue of unemployment, kept saying that gig economy is employment. That people who are delivering for Zomato and Swiggy and Blinkit and driving these cars or frying the pakodas, this is all employment. These are the people who are dying because of heat wave right now, because none of these gig jobs provide them with any respite or any care when there is a heat wave. In fact, they're pushed even harder to deliver in these under these circumstances. They have no health support at all. They have no benefits at all. And there needs to be perhaps a sort of accountability from government saying, hey, you are the ones who had told us this. What is your response today? Which that system seems to have faltered completely. Also, as you pointed out for Delhi, We're facing a situation of urban decay in all our cities. Bangalore has run out of water. Mumbai regularly has now a rising air pollution problem. It's completely toxic. Hoardings are falling on our heads with no accountability. There seems to have been, it's almost like the reality and the sort of expectations we're building are not in touch with each other.
There's
We
no
want these
match at
high
all.
speed. There's no match.
Yeah.
These high
There's,
speed highways that we are constantly being promised, whereas we don't have water, we don't have air. I don't understand where the reality check is going to come from.
no, that's really the problem. And that's what's so scary. And you're talking about the gig economy. Say now there are so many reports coming out about how badly these Swiggy and Zomato and Ola and Uber employees are treated. They don't get paid properly, and as you said, they have no health insurance, they have no security, and they earn depending on how much they work. So if they want to earn a fair wage, they have to work really hard, 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day. That's a lot of work that they have to put in. And, as you said, in the heat, in the cold, it doesn't matter. They just have to go out there and work. And the other day, there was this horrible story about Amazon, that warehouse somewhere in
Yes.
Gurgaon, where, the employees had to take this very demeaning oath, and they got no respite. The women got no respite during their, menstrual problems.
Yeah.
No, they got no lunch break, nothing. So, I mean, it's all very well to say that, service sector and these things are good, and, and set up your pakora stall and you can make money. How much money are you going to make from a pakora stall, for God's sake? Pakora stalls have been around, for centuries, you know I mean,
Yeah.
people want to now move on from pakora stalls to white collar jobs. And
So the
what
price of
they do,
cooking oil is atrocious.
no, but what they're doing, they is actually, and again, these voices came out during the elections. This Agniveer scheme, which
Yes.
has upset a lot of youngsters who come from communities that traditionally go into the armed forces or the paramilitary forces. And this Agniveer scheme offers them no security at all, because after 4 years, you're out on the roads again without a job. And this was something that a lot of people raised. I was reading reports. A lot of people raised this during the election campaign, that where are the jobs. And this, again, need, of course, is for students, and it's been a fiasco. But in UP, in Bihar, recruitment exams, they cancel them again and again because there have been paper leaks. And so, I mean, posts are lying
Yeah.
vacant in the police, posts are lying vacant in schools. They're just not recruiting people. And there seems to be an attempt to actually cut down on government jobs. And, in fact, Amit Shah was on record, I think, in an interview saying, the problem is that people want government jobs. Yeah, but obviously people will want government jobs because government jobs give you security and the private sector doesn't. And the private sector is not large enough to accommodate semi-skilled or sort of half-literate people. The private sector is very demanding. They want educated, skilled, you know highly qualified people. So somewhere the government has to balance these things, and there
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be, I mean,
And
judging from what the president's speech was today, there really doesn't seem to be any meeting ground.
yeah, and for anyone who tracks the development of labor laws in our country from the time of Mr. B.R. Ambedkar, there was an aim to make sure that workers are looked after. And gig economy workers is just a way to bypass labor laws and make sure you don't have to
Absolutely.
look after your workers. And that money then gets passed on to the investors of these unicorn businesses who are already worth billions and billions of dollars. So effectively, we're taking money out of the pockets of the really poor and underemployed and moving it into foreign investor pockets who already have like a ton of money. And we've romanticized this idea of unicorn businesses. But as a country, perhaps we need to take a look at what they are offering their workers, and consider what value they're bringing. There was one, I think it was Raghuram Rajan, who made the suggestion that instead of giving tax breaks worth millions to you know chip companies to set up in India, we should be using that money to solve the problem of malnourishment, because children who are not fed can never really rise out of poverty because their brains don't develop well enough. And are we, are we also, I'm sorry, this conversation has now moved into a far broader space, but have we forgotten our calling of development, developmental economics that helps people move out of poverty? Because we seem like a different country than we were, say, 20 years ago when we were talking about these things.
Well, you see, this is the problem with statistics. We hear all these statistics they've thrown at us. 25 crore people have been moved out of
Moved
poverty.
out.
I mean, do we know the truth? Have we been able to count heads? Every government claims, the Manmohan Singh government also claimed that they've, pushed 20 crore people out of poverty. This government claims they've pushed 25 crore people out of poverty, in which case we should have hardly any poverty at all. So then why are we distributing free grain? If people are, so many people are out of poverty, why do we have to deliver free grain to some, I think it's some 80 crore families that benefit from this free grain scheme? So, I mean, there's really a mismatch, and that's why the statistics are just not telling us the real picture, and we have no way of mapping the real picture because we don't have access to honest
Yardstick numbers.
data. We don't have access to honest data. And yeah, I mean, I sometimes really wonder, uh, why our politicians live in some kind of wonderland. And I mean, highways. And so, there are these two different sets of people. There's this one set of people that say, look how much the Modi government has done in the last 10 years. Infrastructure has improved, communications have improved, we have highways now. And, I mean, it's true. Everybody has a cell phone, everybody has UPI. It's become so easy. You can pay for your subsidies, through Paytm or UPI or whatever. All that is, definitely eased up. But the fact is that corruption, I'm sorry to say, but corruption has really increased. You talk to anybody. I'm not talking about big time corruption at the top level, on arms deals or something. I'm just talking about the day to day harassment that ordinary people face, whether they go to the police, whether they, go to the MCD, whether, the municipal corporation, or whether they need a license for something, or they need to get their ration card renewed. There is so much corruption, which is rotting our system, and people are having to pay for it. So it's sort of endemic. And we don't seem to look at these basics because we're so busy competing with the developed world in all these. I mean, it's a great thing that we can send a spacecraft to the moon and it lands. The Russian spacecraft didn't, our spacecraft landed. I mean, it's a huge achievement, and I'm not trying to belittle it. But while we're doing that, I think we should also look, here down on earth, on the ground, and see what is happening, what are the kind of living conditions that people have to deal with, the kind of hovels that they live in. We've built toilets, half of them don't work. We're supposed to do this Jal Yojana where you're supposed to get a tap to every house. That still hasn't happened. These houses that are being built across the board, free housing or subsidized housing in villages, some of them just crumble after some time, some of them last. It's also patchy, you know. But anyway, to get back to what we originally started out with, Parliament
Yes.
session and Rahul Gandhi and so on. I just hope that the kind of signals we've got in these last few days as Parliament has just started.
Mm.
I hope these signals are not really uh, going to play out in the rest of the session. And I hope that some kind of equilibrium is reached between a resurgent and determined opposition and a government that is so used to a brute majority that, it's lost the art of accommodation and consensus. So I hope
Correct.
that it
Yeah,
finds some
I hope
kind
so.
of a viable.
I hope so too, and I also hope that we have a greater sense of accountability, from government, from opposition, from media, from Parliament in general, because as citizens we deserve that, and we perhaps gotten used to not having it recently, and maybe that's something that can be restored in the 5 years to come. Mr. Ra, thank you so much for giving me time. It has been a pleasure, as always, to chat with you, and I
Thank
do
you.
hope.
Always a pleasure to talk to you too, Faye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. For our audience, remember you can download the Beetroot News app for news and updates, where my team regularly puts out the news. We write it in the most non-partisan, simple way possible, without any sort of clickbaity headlines, to and to try to make things as accessible as possible. And remember, on our YouTube page, to like, share, subscribe, and if you can, and if you're willing, sign up for our membership and support us financially as well. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be here every day at 7 o'clock. Thanks.